Jay, that's strangely close to Daniel Jones from the Giants. Daniel, is that you? Beat the Chiefs. Show me. If the Broncos and Russell Wilson can show me that they can beat the Chiefs, then I will start believing.
And the crowd up. And so are this defense, and Kansas City won't snap the ball again. The Denver Broncos have beaten the Kansas City Chiefs.
David Montgomery on the Lions, former Bear, gonna make this his revenge game for sure. David Montgomery gets the touchdown that ices the game. No! And there's a flag. There's flags. There's flags. There's flags. There's flags. Snap. Hold. Kick.
Denver wins! Denver wins! Let's go!
They open. No!
What happened?
America is football. Football is America.
Football is America. If you don't like it, you can kiss your candy ass.
For the moment in time, I don't give a damn.
Oh
my God!
You loved it.
30 to 27. Chiefs win. Chiefs win 30 to 20.
Woo! Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to a very special edition of the Only Football Podcast. Yours truly has turned 30 today. 30 years old. That is me. I am in my third decade. And I got to say, it doesn't feel much different yet, besides that I'm in a new decade. No more 20 whatever, right? You spend 10 years doing that. It won't probably feel weird until somebody a month from now asks how old I am. And I go, 30, I'm 30. But yeah, honestly, it's an honor. If you guys knew more about my life, you'd understand, but it is a blessing to turn 30 years old. And I'm really happy that I'm here on planet Earth, still enjoying my time doing what I love, which is the reason that I'm going live right now. That's why I'm on this podcast, is because this is what I would like to do on my birthday. It's truly one of my greatest joys to go on here and live stream and give you guys the NFL news and commentary. And just, I've always been so passionate about this. So I'm not going to switch it up on my birthday. However, it is going to be a shorter episode because my family wants to have dinner with me, and that's really important to me as well. So I'm going to honor them by doing that, but I'm also going to give you some news that's going on. And then for my chives, which will come a little bit quicker than normal, I'm going to do something kind of a tribute to my first 30 years. But before we do get started, let me show you what I got this year for my birthday. Is this not the sickest thing you've ever seen in your life? I mean, this thing is so freaking cool. I could just stare at it forever. I mean, the quality of it, the snow. If you guys can't see it, hopefully you can. But it is freaking awesome, and I needed a mouse pad. And behind me, you see that there's a football sitting there, a football that was signed by Broncos tight end, Dwayne Carswell. You might not know Dwayne Carswell. He wasn't a standout player. He was good. I remember actually my first NFL game ever was a Jaguars-Broncos game in Jacksonville, and Dwayne Carswell scored multiple touchdowns. And that was the moment that I put something together. For the first time, it occurred to me that the woman that I had been dating in Jacksonville, her name was Ashley Carswell, right? Always had black girlfriends as a kid. It's just another fun fact about me. But I remember that her mom was a single parent, and her dad wasn't really in the picture. I knew that he like cared for her and loved her. And at this time, my mom and dad owned a kitchen, bath, and kitchen, bath, and something else remodeling company where they would. Their company was really successful, and I found myself living in a really nice neighborhood. And if you guys know anything about my timeline for my life, is that I've been very poor and I have been not very rich, but better than most. And I lived in this gated community, and this is St. John's Forest in Jacksonville. And there was a lot of neighborhoods surrounding, and all the other neighborhoods were almost as well off as our neighborhood. And that's kind of how friends got together. They would be like, oh, we're going to Stonehurst, or we're going to, these different communities that were all on this one road. And the girl that I was dating in middle school, she lived in one of the neighborhoods. And I would often go to her house, and I noticed that her house was 3 stories tall, which even my house wasn't 3 stories. It was only 2 stories, not only, but I remember as a younger kid going, wow, if they have 3 stories, they must really have a lot of money. And I also remembered her telling me that her dad was a professional football player, right? So months and years after we date, and then good Lord, I can't remember why we broke up. It was middle school. I do remember we were together for an entire year and went on a lot of dates. And I remember she used to wear this lip gloss. The lip gloss is popping, just middle school stuff. And my lip gloss is popping. My lip gloss is cool. All the boys be jacking. I think that's Lil' Kim. Anyway, that's the song that's like, what you know about me? What you know about me? I don't know if you guys remember that, but I remember the relationship ending. And when I had all this information in my head, but I never did anything with it. And when I got to Italy on my first deployment, I had to quarantine myself for 14 days because we were in the middle of COVID and I was bored out of my mind. So what did I do? Well, I went on YouTube and I watched old Super Bowls. And I'm sitting there. I've put some beers down at this point, right? I'm quarantining. I got nothing to do. I have put some beers down the hatch. And I'm watching this Broncos-Packers Super Bowl. And it clicks. I was dating Dwayne Carswell's daughter. And for whatever reason, I just never put it together, and she never talked about it. You would think that a kid would be like, my dad's in the NFL. No, I knew her dad was a football player. That's all I knew. It was my fault, and I didn't press for more information. You can find all this information online. It even says what neighborhood she lived in. I realized how I might have been, if you believe in God, it might have been, he was like, there's no way I can let Kyle know this about Ashley, because he will stick with her for right or wrong reasons. And he didn't let me find out. And I did reach out, and I confirmed that Dwayne Carswell, one of the centerpiece, I won't say centerpieces, he wasn't Terrell Davis or John Elway, but he was a Bronco for like 5 solid years, a starting tight end, multiple touchdowns, the starter during the Super Bowl years. I was dating his daughter in Jacksonville, Florida. So I got this sent to me. This is Dwayne Carswell autograph on a mini helmet. And it's a very, very unique name, right? It's not Terrell Davis. It's not John Elway or Manning. But it's somebody that I have ties to. So that is my birthday present, both Denver Broncos related. And I think that is just the coolest, most unique thing. So 30 years old. Great birthday presents have arrived today. And Now I'm going to kind of fly through some of the news for you guys. So Brandon Ayuk is more, man, Nash in the chat. I thought we were going to talk about football. Dude, I just came out and told you that my biggest passion in the world, I dated the tight end's daughter. Like, what? One, that's football related. And two, what a buzzkill, dude. Like, what? Are you kidding me? That is such an interesting story. There's absolutely no regret in telling you guys that story. Okay, Brandon Ayuk is more likely to be traded than remain with the Niners. Now, this situation is getting a lot more sticky. I think a lot of us have come to just understand that the 49ers get into these situations, but ultimately they get settled and both parties figure it out down the road. And actually, there was a situation with Deebo Samuel last year, and this is about, if I'm not mistaken, this is about when it got resolved. So I think we were kind of thinking the same thing with Brandon Ayuk. But the prolonged contract dispute with the Niners doesn't appear to be headed toward reconciliation, and it could result in a trade before long. And there's already a few teams that just jump right out as huge candidates to try to get this guy. But contract talks remain stalled, and it seems more likely today that Ayuk will be traded than to work out an extension with the 49ers. This was reported today. Multiple teams are in play for the ascending wide receiver, but a deal's not in place at this time. See, in order to swing a trade, a few moving parts have to be addressed. First, the 49ers would have to receive adequate compensation for a wideout who recorded consecutive 1,000-yard seasons in the last 2 years, including a career-best 1,342 yards and 7 touchdowns last season. Ayuk would also have to agree to an extension with a new team. Multiple unspecified teams have been granted permission to speak with Ayuk's agent in regard to hammering out a contract extension. So there's no deal in place with at this point with the Steelers or anyone else, regardless of the reports that have been circulating on the internet. This is according to Tom Pelissero, so do what you will with that. But a trade would be ideal. A trade would be ideal for Ayuk, who is all but guaranteed to make more money somewhere else than with the 49ers because of the amount of players the Niners are paying. That alone makes this storyline worth continuing to track in the days and potential weeks ahead. So, Brandon Ayuk may be on his way to another team. And like I said, it could be the Patriots. It could be the Steelers. I think the Steelers really need one more real legitimate threat at the wide receiver position. It could be the Colts, right? Imagine putting him on the Colts. Imagine putting him on the Chargers. And I know some of these teams just don't have the money to do it, and I don't see Jim Harbaugh making a deal like that. But imagine if he went to the Cardinals. Imagine how we would feel about that team overnight with Brandon Ayuk and Marvin Harrison Jr. and the young rookie that kind of ascended at the end of last year and led the NFL in deep balls, receiving yards per reception. I mean, all of a sudden, Brandon Ayuk is one of those pieces that not only does he add a ton of value to whatever team that he goes to, but he also retracts a lot of value of the way we feel about the 49ers right now. Deebo Samuel, they already use him kind of running back, wide receiver. He does a lot more than your typical wide receiver. Okay, so you're already operating in an offense where you have one of your receivers doing more than a typical wide receiver, and then you remove the other one that has the most production in the offense. All of a sudden, CMC's not able to get all of these yards because teams aren't so focused on Brandon Ayuk and Deebo Samuel. This could be a bad situation, especially for somebody like Brock Purdy that just came out last week and said, I want to have that Tom Brady killer instinct where it's the third quarter, we're up 2 possessions, but I just put the game away. I just put it away. I go out there, I throw some more touchdown passes, and next thing you know, it's 40-something to 14. And I think the 49ers led the NFL in point differential last season. So for him saying this, it's like, dude, You guys kind of did that last season, but you understand what he's saying. Is that going to be possible for Brock Purdy? And ultimately, does it answer all the questions about Brock Purdy being a system quarterback, Kyle Shanahan, all these weapons, anyone could succeed? What if he goes out there and is a little bit worse with Brandon Ayuk? Is that not natural? But you know what, people will jump down. Like I told you it was the people around him, even if it's a minor decline, which would not make sense if he didn't have some kind of decline. When Jamar Chase is in the game, Joe Burrow does. So there's going to be a lot of conversations that spark from Brandon Ayuk if he's going to be playing on another team. And I think the Commanders is the one that I've linked him to since the beginning, not just me, a lot of people. Good friends with Jaden Daniels. Washington's kind of got a good thing over there. Brandon Ayuk brings a lot of energy to a place that is buzzing right now. Reports are coming out that Jaden Daniels is a pro. He's impressing Dan Quinn. So this is actually a really, really important situation to monitor. I think a trade would be ideal for Ayuk, but there's going to be a huge ripple effect in the NFL. And I think that alone makes the storyline worth continuing to track in the days and potential weeks ahead. And you guys can get all that news right here with us. And we got Bill in the chat. He said, I'll have to rewatch that part. My wife came in and was talking to me. No worries, Bill. Highly recommend it. Highly recommend. And Nash said, I sent it before you relived it. Had to do with football, and that was a cool story. Oh, okay. I was like, there's no way. I just told my, like, the coolest story in the world, and you guys are like, pass. But yeah, I'm happy you guys are all in here. So that is the Brandon Ayuk news. I also wanted to talk about Daniel Jones, because Daniel Jones got into a joint practice scuffle today. You tried to stand up for your guys, is what he said, explaining his involvement in the Lions-Giants joint practice fight. And joint practices tend to breed animosity. And right now, you could ask anybody on the Giants, and they'll give you the same answer. The G-men found themselves in a few scraps during Monday's session with the Lions, a day that grew to become so chippy that even Daniel Jones got into it. When Daniel Jones is getting into a fight, you know things are going down. Jones was eventually pulled from the scrum by the coach, but not before he was able to get involved enough to earn some respect from his teammates. And I just want to say before I even continue, this is the exact type of energy that Daniel Jones needs to put out there, right? If you're going to try to prove that you're the franchise quarterback, it's no secret that you got 1 year. And if you don't even play good in the first 4 games, that could be all you get. Drew Lock might be the guy. Daniel Jones, they come out and said he is, I think, if I'm not mistaken, they said he's earned the right to be QB1. He's going to be QB1. But Daniel Jones, this is a new team every single year. And Daniel Jones needs his guys to feel like Daniel Jones is the guy, because players play different when they truly believe that we got a guy that I want to play for. Daniel Jones getting in this kind of a scrap on the field lets not just offensive players, but defensive players know, like, hey, this guy is one guy that we want on the team. He cares. It matters. And he's got our back. So we got his back, whether that's in the film room, whether somebody's talking bad about him in the locker room and somebody comes up like, hey, what are you doing? So earning this type of respect goes a really long way in a locker room, because if you can win the locker room, you can really, really turn things around quick. I mean, look at how Antonio Pierce won the locker room and how that just shifted the culture of the Raiders yesterday. And like I said, even defensive players felt this passion from Daniel Jones, including Giants edge rusher Brian Burns, who said after the practice that Daniel was out there with it. Yeah, I'm going to back him up. I'm going to need him to back up. Let his O-line handle that. But yeah, Daniel, he's a competitor, man. He's a fighter. I don't expect nothing less from him, but I don't need him in that. I don't need him to get hit. Keep him healthy. And Burns is correct in his assessment. No NFL team needs their quarterback unnecessarily throwing themselves into a fight. especially at this time of the year in camp, especially not Jones, who's got a pretty significant injury history. But on the other side of it, I do think it's a refreshing look at the otherwise pretty mild-mannered guy that Daniel Jones is. I mean, he went to Duke. He's just not, Baker Mayfield, right? He's not on the sideline telling people to suck it. And, I mean, so I do think that for his personality type, it's perfect. If somebody like Baker Mayfield gets into the situation, it's like, oh, the narrative comes back. Baker Mayfield, he's a selfish guy, only cares about himself. But Daniel Jones can get away with this. He can actually not only get away with it, but it can actually increase his popularity, which is what we're seeing. I do think Daniel Jones is going to need to play with a bit of an attitude if his time in New York is going to work out. He's going to have to go out there and play with some type of attitude. And Jones was actually asked afterward, and he downplayed his involvement. And he said, I mean, situations happen like that. You try to stand up for your guys, but I thought it was a good competitive practice all day. We made some plays and we did some good things. There were some things we need to shore up for sure, but the intensity and competitive spirit is there. Love to hear that. Some coaches despise in-practice fights because it robs them of quality time intended to improve, but with the hot weather and the natural competitive environment, oftentimes we do see a fight almost every single year, I would say. There's going to be some type of scramble or ramble going on the field. It's August. It's August 5th. My birthday is normally the hottest day of the year. This day is... I was outside running today. I ran... It doesn't matter. I couldn't breathe. It was so hot. It was so hot that I got home and I laid in my bed just trying to catch my breath. I had a towel over my bed. I didn't just sweat all over my bed, but I felt myself falling asleep because of the sheer exhaustion. Imagine being in that type of heat and you're hitting people. I mean, that's crazy. Of course there's going to be a fight. But I think the Giants need this type of fire entering 2024, especially after they fell flat after a disappointing 2023. I think there's no time to left for Daniel Jones or even head coach Brian Daboll. They must prove that 2023 was not a sign of the things to come, that it was just an off year, right? Not a trajectory that they're headed down. I think the goal is every day you come out and practice, whether you're practicing against your team or yourself, it is better to feel more confident at the end of the day. That's what Jones said today. I think we all did that. I think we made some plays, executed well throughout the day. Like I said, there's some things we want to back and things we could do better for sure. But overall, I thought we played tough, played physical, and executed well. So execution's the goal. Daniel Jones can provide moral support from outside the fight the next time there is one, which there will be a next one. And Bill says DJ was surprising today. Drew Phillips was involved in all 5 fights today. The sun god doesn't like him. And Burns. Oh, I meant to click the other one. This is Dan Jones with a beard that I've been at. This is the Dan Jones that I've been asking for. Burns. Oh, DJ getting jiggy with it. LOL. And Bill said, check my reply to your Twitter announcement post. Can't wait to do it. I'm going to check it out. Was it the balloons? Okay. Sorry, I heard some screaming in the background, and I was just making sure it was happy screaming. Chiefs Butker agreed to terms on the 4-year, $25.6 million extension. All right. The Kansas City Chiefs are locking down Super Bowl winning quarterback Harrison Butker for the long haul. His deal includes $17.8 million in guaranteed money. The Chiefs and Butker have agreed on a 4-year, $25.6 million contract extension. The pact makes the 29-year-old the highest paid kicker in the NFL, passing Jake Elliott. and Justin Tucker's $6 million per year average. Oh, I didn't see that there was an announcement. Let me check it out. Let me see what's up with this announcement. The only football podcast. What do we got here? Community. Home. Oh, was it on X? Sorry. Was it? Oh, okay. I think it was on X. Here we go. And NFL News. Media. Applies post. No, I can't find it anyway. I hit my head on my wall. Are you all right? Are you all right, Nash? Let us know. Me and Bill want to know. We're worried about you. Okay, Harrison Butker, highest paid kicker in the NFL. And there were people that were like, oh my gosh, he's getting paid more money than Jake Elliott or Justin Tucker. And it's like, well, yeah, I mean, it's not just the wide receiver position that resets the market every time a person gets paid. It's every kicker. And honestly, Butker has played in multiple Super Bowls. He's been a stabilizing weapon since joining the Chiefs in 2017. He's actually been on all three of Kansas City's Lombardi winning seasons since 2020, including a nail-biting Super Bowl record of hitting a 57-yard field goal in February's win over San Francisco. You take that field goal off the board, Niners win in regulation. In 7 seasons with the Chiefs, Butker's made 89% of his field goal attempts and 94.5% of his point after. His career long of 62 yards came in 2022, and in 19 postseason games, he's hit 88.9% of 36 field goal attempts and 95% of 65 point afters. And these point afters are no longer gimmies. Earlier this offseason, Butker created waves with his statements. I'm not going to get into them at all here, but I did think that Harrison Butker was deserving of this contract based on the way that he plays football. And the Kansas City Chiefs aren't going to mess around with that. You got a kicker, you keep your kicker. And I think Andy Reid also, you kind of felt when he came out and spoke about all the controversy that was surrounding him, you could tell Andy Reid had his back, and then he was gonna be a Chief for the long haul, right? And you can really see that they're very close. Some of these players that are the integral players on the Chiefs, the Travis Kelce, the Mahomes, Chris Jones, Harrison Butker. There's a few guys in there. You had L'Jarius Sneed. Now he's gone. But the guys that are sticking together really look out for each other. So congratulations to Harrison Butker for becoming the highest paid kicker. And now if you're Justin Tucker, it's time to get to the negotiation table and ultimately reinsert yourself as the highest paid. And some players, they become the highest paid and you go, oh, I don't know about all of that. And sometimes the right guy is the highest paid. Mahomes is like the 10th highest paid quarterback right now. Is that right? No. So this is the way the market goes, though. Here is the last thing I wanted to do before I give you my chimes. 2024 fantasy football. There are 10 overvalued and undervalued NFL players to know before you draft. Okay. Once again, this is really, really important information, but it is not my own. This information was written by the fantasy analyst Marcus Grant, and it was published today at 3:07 p.m. And what it is he's giving you 10 overvalued and undervalued players you need to know before your fantasy draft. And some of them I'll agree with, some of them I won't. Let me start with his list of overrated. Of course, this doesn't make sense to me, but it's Jahmyr Gibbs. His project draft position is RB4 round 1. I do think that is a little high, especially with Dave Montgomery. But let's hear his explanation. Last season, fantasy managers were excited at the prospect of Gibbs and an ascending Lions offense. Those same managers were dismayed that Gibbs didn't immediately get a large share of Detroit backfield work. Montgomery was the fly in the ointment for the first few weeks of the season as the rookie eased into his role. Eventually, Gibbs saw a share of touches that eager drafters could feel comfortable with, though much of that came because of an injury to Montgomery. No sane person would doubt Gibbs' talent and his upside within the offense, but Montgomery is still here. The veteran isn't the sexiest option, but he's steady. He's had more than 1,000 scrimmage yards and at least 6 touchdowns in every season of his career. And he's not going away in the Detroit attack. That's not the level of competition you want for a player who's going as the 4th running back off the board. And let me say, I completely agree with what he's saying. It is alarming, and that's why he's probably a great writer, is because it does cause you to double take. But he's right. Montgomery is just a little too good for Jahmyr Gibbs to be picked 4th overall. And part of, like I mentioned this the other day, I was like, just because somebody is valued lower or higher than their ADP doesn't necessarily translate to how you feel about that player. Like, we love Jahmyr Gibbs. Jahmyr Gibbs is amazing, and he's going to be a great contributor. If I'm picking at the end of the first round and he's on the board, I'm drafting him. But am I drafting him as the 4th running back? Probably not. In most of my drafts, we go quarterback. So if I'm drafting with the 8th or 9th, and I'm looking at the 8th or 9th running back and I see Jahmyr Gibbs, even the 7th, I'd probably take him. But 4 is kind of high. Deebo Samuel. This is overrated. I don't know, with everything going on with Ayuk, I think that this might be underrated, but some players are much better in real life than they are in fantasy football, and Samuel is one of those guys. He's been a jack of all trades for Shanahan, and there was also his mind-boggling 2021 season where he was the best hybrid offensive weapon. Those two things combined to give fantasy enthusiasts an overinflated view of his potential. The truth is that while Samuel's weekly ceiling is very high, the weekly floor can also be very low. Yes, he does have ups and downs, and his ups are very high. But then he'll get you 10 points for 2 weeks in a row. He presents a scary ceiling for a player being drafted as a low-end wide receiver 1, even scarier for a player who's coming off the board ahead of his much steadier teammate, Brandon Ayuk. Maybe this ADP inflation is tied to trade rumors that's swirled around Ayuk all summer. If we see Samuel's draft price, and that's what I was thinking immediately when I saw this, if Brandon Ayuk is gone, all of a sudden Deebo Samuel's stock goes up. Devon Achane, similar to Jahmyr Gibbs, while the Dolphins didn't have much immediate hype, there was a belief that he could earn a sizable role in this confusing backfield. What few expected was just how elite his speed would translate to the next level. Not me. I knew it. Look, this is another thing where it's like Raheem Mostert, Jalen Wright now being drafted. They've added so much variety that it's just hard to think that this guy's going to consistently have games where you can start him and feel good about it. Rashee Rice is overrated, according to him. He says his ascension to fantasy relevance last season was born mostly from necessity. The issue is that most of Rice's touches last year were manufactured. He averaged 5 air yards per target in an offense that resigned itself to playing close to the line of scrimmage. This year, the Chiefs don't plan to use last year's Chiefs. The new additions, Marquise Brown and Xavier Worthy, suggest that the 2-time MVP will get back to attacking downfield. And then you add in that Kelce is again expected to be the team's top target. And also, when you get people downfield and you stretch the field, Kelce can do a lot more with the middle of the field. It's eye-raising enough that he's going ahead of both Brown and Worthy. It's even more head scratching that he's in the same neighborhood as Jayden Reed and Terry McLaurin. So they're just saying, look, if you're in the third round or the sixth round, and you got an option between guys like Terry McLaurin, Jayden Reed, and Rashee Rice probably isn't the guy. But look, as long as Patrick Mahomes is the quarterback for him, he's going to be viewed pretty high because people believe that Patrick Mahomes is going to find a way to get the number one receiver on his team touches and the ball. What's more concerning is, I guess by December, I think he delayed his corporate stuff to December, but if he's having a good year and he gets suspended at the beginning of December, you wouldn't have him for the playoffs. TJ Hawkinson, interesting. He is projected as tight end 14, round 11. That is, I think, too low. I think this is underrated. They're saying overrated. On one hand, I get it. While the fantasy tight end position has gained some much-needed depth in recent seasons, there's still a lack of consistency outside of the top-tier players. Most of the tight ends drafted outside the top 8 could finish just about anywhere. From the bottom of the top 10 to outside the top 20, Hawkinson is a known commodity who offers tight end 1 upside when healthy. It's the last part that makes Hawkinson's ADP hard to swallow for me. His outstanding 2023 season ended prematurely because of an ACL tear. Having it happen so late in the year will undoubtedly impact his availability for the start of the season. As for just when he'll return, we don't know. This is before we get into a quarterback situation that has scared drafters away from the Vikings' skill positions in general. If the prospect Sam Darnold is under center, and how do you feel about Jordan Addison? How do you feel about TJ Hawkinson? How can we have any level of confidence in a recovering TJ Hawkinson? This is one dart throw I'd prefer to keep in my pocket. I totally forgot about the injury. I'll just be honest with you right now. That's why I was like, I don't understand. Yeah, all of that. Very good point. That's why these articles are important to read. Good to hear, Nash. Or am I? Or am I? That's funny. Underrated. All right. Now, here are the underrated players for your fantasy football. Are you ready? Are you ready? Are you taking notes? Amari Cooper. He's wide receiver 23, projected in the 4th round. Cooper had a respectable, if not remarkable, wide receiver 20 finish last year. If you're looking for silver linings, it's that Cooper finished as a top 20 receiver despite Cleveland's revolving door at quarterback. 5 different players started a game under center for the Browns. Deshaun Watson, Joe Flacco had a pretty good finish, but what a lot of us gloss over were the games started by Dorian Thompson-Robinson, P.J. Walker, and Jeff Driscoll. Through it all, Cooper maintained a 21% target share. Even if the percentage of catchable targets fluctuated from week to week, the volume was there, and it should continue to be until we see otherwise. It's hard to envision that Elijah Moore or Jerry Jeudy are true threats to Cooper's target share. And while Njoku was a stud at the end of the season, we have yet to see him produce with Watson at quarterback. Wide receiver 20 feels like Cooper's absolute floor this year, with the finish inside of the top 12 being a real possibility. And keep in mind, this is a guy that I believe is I think he's 30 years old. So for some reason, he's one of those guys, because he's been on 3 teams, that feels, to me at least, I don't know, time is relative, but Amari Cooper just, to me, is the oldest 30-year-old in the NFL. Like, there's a part of me that feels like I've been watching him play for so long. Because I remember when he was drafted to the Raiders and the Broncos played the Raiders, and it seems like so long ago. The Raiders were in Oakland. I mean, but Amari Cooper, he's only 30. and he's still got a lot of good football left in him. George Pickens for the Steelers. Projected draft position is wide receiver 31, round 6. Pickens had a couple of notable runs during the 23 season. The first came early in the year after Deontay Johnson went down with an injury. During that 4-game period, Pickens averaged more than 8 targets in 16 fantasy points per game. The next stretch came during the final month of the season. He was wide receiver 7 over the final 3 weeks while seeing a bump in targets per route run. That was with Johnson on the field. With Johnson shipped to Carolina now, Pickens no longer has target competition. The quarterback situation does give some reason for pause, though, but there's no certainty that Russell Wilson, who has a calf issue right now, keeps the job all year with Justin Fields waiting in the wings. But either should provide more consistent play than what the Steelers had with Kenny Pickett. Pickens' improved situation could be enough to move him a couple draft spots up the board from wide receiver 31 ahead of some other receivers in a more crowded offense. And this is what I was saying the other day. You can have a really good player that you love, and you could take a lesser player. I think Diggs is better than Pickens. Who would I rather have on my fantasy team? It's a tough question because Diggs has to share targets with Tank Dell and Nico Collins and Dalton Schultz and all these players. And it's same thing with the Bears. Who's going to be the guy? Is there going to be a guy? The Packers. I feel good. I think Jaden Reed probably. There's not a lot of teams where like, hey, man, we're counting on you. You're our guy. You're it. Right? Like how the Niners will be if Ayuk leaves about Debo. That's how the Steelers are about Pickens. So you want to get players that are going to get volume. Volume. It's a game of volume. Who's going to get the most catches per game? That's what you want on your team. So I do agree that George Pickens, to me, I don't love it. But his situation is pretty damn favorable, especially for where you can get away with drafting him. Bill said Fields is going to steal Russ's place while he's injured. I have a feeling. Uh-oh. Bill's got a feeling. Woo-hoo. Yeah, I said it. By now, you've planted a flag about how you feel about Kyle Pitts. Maybe you jumped on the bandwagon early on, only to get burned a couple of years in a row. Now you vowed to stay away. Maybe you look at the major changes Atlanta's made in this offseason and you've decided to buy back in. Or maybe you're a part of the crew that never wavered. There are dozens of us. Dozens. We finally have a perfect storm of upside for Kyle Pitts. Improved quarterback play, an aggressive but not wacky play caller, a clean bill of health. Has that really been too much to ask for? Let's be honest. If it doesn't happen this year, then it might never happen. Another underwhelming campaign from the former first rounder, and I'll refund what it costs to read this article. Look, I get it. I do. There are a couple players that get a pass because the upside is so high. Kyle Pitts was drafted, I believe, 4th overall. When you're drafted 4th overall, you get a few more chances than somebody that's drafted in the 6th round. Let's just say the GM and the players and the coaches that drafted you have a personal reason to want you to work out because it's on their resume. Now, with all that said, if Kyle Pitts was just going out and being a bum every single year, then I would have to say, well, we've seen what we've seen. But like he said, is it too much to ask for? The fact that he has somebody playing quarterback that's actually respectable in Kirk Cousins. Where how hard are we going to judge Kyle Pitts off of playing with quarterbacks that aren't even starting in the NFL right now? Or having a play caller like Arthur Smith who loves to run the football over and over and over. Okay? I mean, it's not like we're giving Kyle Pitts a pass and he was in a good situation and we're just like, we have blind faith. It's like, no, some essential things are actually happening for him. And like he says at the end of this article, if it doesn't happen this year, then like, absolutely, you take it all back. But the fact of the matter is, the things hindering him the most are no longer there. So take it for what that's worth. Another tight end that is underrated, and the more they talk about this player, I don't think he's going to be underrated. But this is what Trey McBride, tight end number 6, round 6. As bullish as I am on Pitts in 2024, I'm even more optimistic about McBride. From week 8 until the end of the season, he was the 3rd best tight end in fantasy football, and it was enough to overshadow Marquise Brown and make Zach Ertz expendable. McBride is everything we want in a fantasy tight end. Young, attached to a good quarterback, and facing minimal target competition. Although this year's edition of the Cardinals will feature Marvin Harrison Jr. heavily, McBride, at worst, will be the second option in an offense that will need to throw the ball much more than it did last season. McBride could certainly pay off an earlier ADP. Maybe it's best to forego breaking the bank for Sam Laporta or Travis Kelce and take the discount on a tight end with similar upside. So I love what they're saying here. Sam Laporta, Travis Kelce, of course, you're going to love to draft those players. But if you don't want to jump the gun on one of those, you're going to have your player you jump the gun on. Are you going to be the first guy to take a tight end or a quarterback? Those are the two positions that are weird. Plenty of people will take receivers and running backs, but that first person to draft Jalen Hurts or whatever quarterback they draft, Lamar Jackson, that's kind of like there's a run on quarterbacks, and there's 3 of them. And then you get to the second wave of quarterbacks that you're like, I'll do the discounted version. So I don't know how you guys draft, if you do it that way or if you wait for the discount. But if you're going to wait for the discount, Trey McBride has similar upside this year, and you don't have to risk, one of your picks. And you also can have a plan. The most important thing going into a fantasy draft is having a plan. Austin Eckler is being considered underrated. Right now, he's RB 35. Projected to be drafted in round 8. Okay. First of all, it's weird to write about Eckler as a Commander after 7 seasons with the Chargers. The versatile back moves to the nation's capital for a fresh start. So far, fantasy drafters don't seem impressed. Eckler's 29 years old, coming off an injury-riddled season and transitioning to a new offense. Not exactly a combination that inspires confidence. But on the flip side, Eckler still won't hit the dreaded 30-year-old age cliff. Hey, I rebuke that. I resent that. There is no dreaded 30-year-old age cliff. Because I'm proof. I would be on it today. You're like, we'll give it a year. Okay, sorry. He's hopefully fully healthy after, that was my first time being 30, being offended about that. So that was a moment. I'm glad we had that moment recorded. He's hopefully fully healthy after dealing with some nagging ankle injuries last year. And he's reuniting with his former head coach, Anthony Lynn, who now oversees Washington's running backs. Even with running back in Jaden Daniels, Eckler should be featured heavily in the passing game. I meant a running quarterback in Jaden Daniels. So the goal line work could be split between him and Brian Robinson, but Eckler has repeatedly shown a nose for the end zone, and his days as an elite fantasy option might be past, but it's still hard to think he can't muster at least a top 25 finish this year. So this is one of those where it's just like, look, if you're in the 8th round and Austin Eckler is available, draft him. He's 29 years old, right? You don't know what that offense is going to look like with Jaden Daniels. That offense could look completely different. That offense could add a weapon. Think about this. That offense could add somebody. Brian Robinson's in Austin Eckler. That's a really good running back duo. Terry McLaurin and Jahan Dotson, those are really solid wide receivers. And I think Jaden Daniels will have the best quarterback of any quarterback that was drafted this year. So if Austin Eckler is in this type of an offense and the Commanders are surprisingly really good, I think Austin Eckler will also be putting up pretty good numbers. Definitely better than 8th round numbers. And that is the overrated, underrated players for your fantasy football. Hopefully you guys don't make the same mistakes that they try to warn you about. Drafting TJ Hawkinson, he's going to be nursing that ACL. It happened really late at the end of the season. And then there's just a lot of players in there that high ADP, but they're sharing volume, right? Like Jahmyr Gibbs, 4th best running back in this year's draft. But Montgomery has had a 1,000-yard rushing season every year since he's been in the league. Achane, with Jalen Wright being drafted and Raheem Mostert. There's just a lot of volume question marks. So that was the overrated, underrated thing that I wanted to do with you guys. And I put this out on Saturday, and this was the top 100 players of 2024, number 10 to 1. Okay. Number 10 is Max Crosby, who is actually up 3 spots from 7. He was number 7 last year. One would be hard-pressed to find a more desirable pass rusher than Crosby, whose refusal to give up on plays and willingness to leave it out on the field was best exemplified in 2023, despite a knee injury suffered in Week 2, which required offseason surgery. The Raiders' defense and, wow, I didn't realize his stats, guys. He had 14.5 sacks, 50 quarterback pressures, 31 quarterback hits, and 23 tackles for a loss. The sky's the limit for the Raiders pass rusher. At number 9, staying in the AFC West, Travis Kelce. And he was at number 4 last year, so he is down 5 spots. Kelce reached new heights. Wait, he was up 7. Down. Oh, he's down 4. Or is he up? Oh, okay. So Max Crosby's is up good and down is bad. Yeah, up is good and down is bad. So I thought it was saying Max Crosby was 7 last year and now he's 10. They're saying he's up 7. So he was 10. So that means that last year he was 17th. Okay. Travis Kelce's down 4, which means last year he was 5th in this. Kelce reached new heights of popularity. The Chief star is the highest ranked tight end for the 4th consecutive year, despite falling 16 yards short of his 8th straight 1,000-yard season. In 2023, he had 93 catches, 984 yards, 5 touchdowns in 15 games. A sure-handed model of consistency, Kelce was a force to be reckoned with during Kansas City's successful run at back-to-back Super Bowls. Like, we know who Travis Kelce is. We know why he's top 10, right? He's earned it. Hate to say it, but he has. TJ Watt, who is up 19 spots, finds himself in the top 10 at number 8. TJ Watt returned with a vengeance in 2023 following an injury-riddled season that temporarily halted his historic sack collecting pace. The Steelers' star pass rusher resumed it in remarkable fashion, leading the NFL with 19 sacks, the 3rd time in 4 seasons he's been the NFL sack champion. Watt also produced 50 quarterback pressures, 36 QB hits, 4 forced fumbles, 1 interception, 3 fumble recoveries, a defensive touchdown, and an All-Pro campaign. Wow. Pittsburgh's defense has fed off of Watt's energy since 2018, and the 29-year-old is already the all-time sack leader of a historically rich franchise. Wow. I didn't know he was a sack leader. Wow. James Harrison? He averages 0.93 sacks per game. Watt is on pace to hit 100 career sacks in his 108th game, which would make him the second fastest player in history, behind all-time great Reggie White, to get there. Wow. Unbelievable. And Bill, I could not agree with you more. TJ Watt was robbed of Defensive Player of the Year last year. Coming in at number 7, and he's up 7 spots, meaning this player was at 14 last year. Now he's in the top 10, and he deserves it. Trent Williams, offensive tackle for the 49ers, who is aging like a fine wine. He's 36 years old, but he doesn't look like it. He's the highest ranking offensive lineman on the top 100 at 36 years old. And he's been a really important part of Kyle Shanahan's offense in the past 3 seasons. Williams' skill set as an elite run and pass blocking left tackle renders the complex scheme into a seemingly painless process. In 2023, the 11-time Pro Bowler earned the second highest run blocking grade from PFF, a 92.5, while helping pave the way for the league's rushing champion. He also didn't allow a single sack, not one sack, last season, despite seeing weekly matchups against the opposition's best pass rusher. It resulted in Williams earning his 3rd consecutive All-Pro honor and receiving the proverbial flowers from his NFL contemporaries. Coming in at number 6, who is up 4 spots from last year. So last year he was in the top 10. Chris Jones. And by the way, all AFC teams. Jones has long been the focal point for offensive coordinators game planning against Kansas City. In 2023, the 30-year-old captained the youngest defense in the league to back-to-back Super Bowl glory, collecting 10.5 sacks, 39 quarterback pressures, 29 QB hits, and 13 tackles for a loss. Riding a streak of 5 straight Pro Bowl bids and 2 All-Pro honors, Jones earns his highest ranking to date in the top 100. Another guy that deserves to be there. You saw what Kansas City looked like without him, and they immediately paid him. Lost to the Lions. A deal was done in like 2 days. Coming in at number 5, up 15 spots, another AFC team, and that is Myles Garrett. The appreciation of Garrett continues as the top 100 highest ranked defenders. Cleveland's daunting edge rusher was invincible through the first 11 games, securing 13 of his 14 sacks during a span that included a memorable showcase of dominance. A shoulder injury halted Garrett's sack pace, but even his burdened presence was a major factor for the Browns' number 1 ranked defense because of the attention he requires. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if TJ Watt and Myles Garrett, they're both so good, but I don't know if TJ Watt should be here. Myles Garrett was voted here, but he also is the Defensive Player of the Year. I think if TJ Watt gets that award, the positions are switched. All right, and here's the one that I have a major problem with. Patrick Mahomes is at number 4. No. Now, I don't ever want to see something this dumb and actually read what the author wrote. For whatever reason, Mahomes is ranked at number 4. That's dumb. It's stupid. He's won his 3rd Super Bowl MVP. He's trying to win 3 Super Bowls in a row. He had this team winning a Super Bowl in a bad year. If you take Mahomes off of the Chiefs last year, the Chiefs don't finish with a winning season. Like, Mahomes is the most valuable player in the NFL, period. Because whatever team Patrick Mahomes goes on immediately has a chance to win Super Bowls. This is absolutely bullshit. I'm sorry. Like, I love Christian McCaffrey. I do. But he's a running back. There's nobody more important than the quarterback. That is just the way football is. That's why the MVP will always go to a quarterback. So I don't understand how a quarterback can be voted behind a running back. No matter how good how good McCaffrey may be and how high I do view him. It's just, I don't like seeing something out of order. This is out of order. If the players really voted this way, they're all wrong, which is weird, right? But he is down 3 spots. Of course, he was at number 1 last year. So I don't know if they're trying to mix it up, but they had it right last year. This year, it just looks dumb. Kelsey and Mahomes dropping spots is three-peat locker room material, and the NFL should know better. Probably why they're doing it, because they want Taylor Swift. I'm just kidding. Christian McCaffrey is at number 3. Oh, my God. Lamar Jackson is ranked higher than Patrick Mahomes. Oh, my God. The NFL is like reaffirming their own opinion. They give out the awards and then they affirm it on their own. Lamar Jackson, who won MVP last year, is ranked higher than Mahomes. You got Myles Garrett, Defensive Player of the Year, above TJ Watt. They're just like, it's like an echo chamber. Honestly, this is so dumb. Lamar Jackson had a great season, electrifying. He won his 2nd MVP. He was amazing. He didn't win the Super Bowl. He didn't win Super Bowl MVP. He couldn't even beat Mahomes when they played in the AFC Championship game. If there was any question of who is where you rank them, that was answered after the AFC Championship game was concluded last year. And what's weird is Lamar Jackson was ranked 72 last year on the top 100. So look how reactionary this is. Like, you win MVP and you're up 70 points ahead of Patrick Mahomes. 70 points. I'm sorry. That is so dumb. Can't believe it. And then number 1 in the NFL. This is bad. This is bad. I don't know. Tyreek Hill. Above Patrick Mahomes. Hill becomes the first wide receiver to have the number 1 spot in the top 100. 14-year history following a spectacular season when he flirted with Calvin Johnson's single-season record. He led the league in receiving yards. Look, I get all that, but Tyreek Hill being at number 1, I'm sorry. That doesn't make any sense to me. But that is going to be the top 100. Bill says, NBC Sports says that the 49ers have framework deals in place for Ayuk with the Browns and the Patriots just now. Very interesting. We're going to be monitoring that. And, of course, tomorrow I'll be going live on NFL with Kyle, and you can find that on my YouTube channel, Kyle Kitzman. But thank you guys for tuning in to this 30th birthday spectacular, and hopefully you guys enjoyed all of it. I will see you guys tomorrow. Bill, I'm going to check out that message on Twitter whenever I find it. You guys have a good night, and I will see you tomorrow. See ya.